This is our time, the main news at this hour. I'm Yulia Gorovaya in the studio. Hello. Last night, Russia once again attacked Ukrainian cities and infrastructure. The main targets were energy facilities. This was reported by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. According to him, Russian forces used nearly 100 attack drones, most of which were shot down. In the Kharkiv region, civilian infrastructure was damaged, including the railway. In the Sumy region, strikes on energy facilities and an enterprise were recorded. The Russians also struck the Donetsk region. Emergency services are currently working at the sites, and restoration efforts are ongoing. Meanwhile, Zelenskyy called the shelling of Kharkiv, which happened last night, a terrorist act. He called on partners to take action and put pressure on the Russian Federation.
The world can deprive Moscow of the ability to carry out these brutal strikes. Our partners know what is needed for this: Patriot, NASAMS, SAMP/T, and other vital systems. We are counting on action from the US and Europe, the G7, and all partners who have these systems and can provide them to protect our people. Ukraine needs enough air defense systems to close the sky for missiles, drones, and glide bombs. Then Russian aerial terror will lose all meaning. The world must force Moscow to sit down at the table for real negotiations. Only peace through strength can bring results. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
And the night before, Russian forces dropped 3 aerial bombs on Kharkiv. According to the regional prosecutor's office, the shells weighed about 250 kilograms and half a ton. One bomb fell near a hospital. More than 50 people were injured. 7 were wounded by shrapnel. Garages with ambulances and other vehicles were destroyed. A 3-story hospital building was heavily damaged. About 200 windows were blown out there. Wards and medical equipment were damaged. The injured were evacuated. Also, during the attack, 2 aerial bombs hit power lines. 30,000 customers were left without electricity.
Already, the original state has been completely and thoroughly restored, bringing it back to its former glory and pristine condition.
At the moment, there are 7 injured people in the hospital. None are in serious condition. Their wounds are from glass shards. Everyone has received assistance. And all the people who were in the affected building have been relocated to the main hospital building. The building of our hospital garage was destroyed. 2 vehicles belonging to the hospital were damaged: a UAZ ambulance and a Gazelle ambulance.
The President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, will speak at the European Council meeting in Brussels on October 23rd. This was reported by the President of the European Council, Antonio Costa. The main topic of the meeting is increasing financial support for Ukraine. They will also discuss the possible use of frozen Russian assets. Costa also noted that aid to Ukraine must continue. According to him, pressure on Russia and support for Ukraine are the path to a just peace. US President Donald Trump has confirmed an agreement to meet with Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelenskyy at the White House on October 17. The visit was previously announced by the President of Ukraine as well. The main topic of the talks is strengthening air defense and giving Ukraine the capability to carry out long-range strikes to put pressure on Russia. A Ukrainian delegation has already arrived in Washington, headed by Prime Minister Yulia Svyrydenko, as well as the head of the President's office Andriy Yermak and National Security and Defense Council Secretary Rustem Umerov. Let me remind you, over the past weekend, Zelenskyy and Trump spoke by phone twice. They discussed strengthening air defense and the sale of Tomahawk missiles. White House Chief Donald Trump named Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan as a possible mediator in resolving Russia's war against Ukraine. He made this statement after his visit to the Middle East. According to Trump, the Kremlin dictator Putin respects Erdogan. Trump himself said that he considers Erdogan his friend.
Erdogan might be able to. He is respected by Russia. I can't speak for Ukraine, but he is respected by Putin. He is my friend. You understand why I have good relationships with strong people, not weak ones. I don't know why that is. Erdogan treats me very well. When NATO has problems with Erdogan, and that happens often, they call me to talk to him, and I have never let them down. Everything was always resolved quickly.
The head of Germany's foreign ministry, Johann Wadefuhl, called on U.S. President Donald Trump to increase pressure on Putin to end the war in Ukraine. Wadefuhl noted Trump's contribution to resolving the war and the conflict in Gaza. Berlin believes that now is the right time to launch a peace process in Ukraine and warns of the risk of escalations in hostilities. Meanwhile, the NATO Parliamentary Assembly has called for increased support for Ukraine, including the supply of long-range weapons and the lifting of restrictions on their use. As reported by the head of the Ukrainian delegation, Yair Chernov, the Assembly insists on Ukraine's right to strike targets on Russian territory. The resolution also calls for increased supplies of air defense systems, as well as means to counter drones, aircraft, and intelligence gathering, and for the integration of Ukraine's defense industry into NATO projects.
It is worth noting that although the resolutions of the NATO Parliamentary Assembly are advisory in nature, they almost always serve as a prelude to real political decisions. This often becomes the foundation on which the governments of NATO countries later base their actions. So, our delegation has fulfilled its tasks, achieving formulations that are important to us. And now we await action from Western governments. Yair Chernov, head of Ukraine's permanent delegation to the NATO Parliamentary Assembly, Facebook.
President Donald Trump wants to end Russia's war against Ukraine and continues to work hard to make it possible. This was stated by the United States representative to NATO, Matthew Whitaker. According to him, the head of the White House will create the circumstances and leverage necessary to bring Russia to the negotiating table. But if Putin continues the war, Washington will increase the pressure, Whitaker warns. Gendry Dmytrenko will continue on this topic.
Just like with any other terrorist, Putin can be forced to make peace, said the president of Ukraine in his address to the participants of the 71st annual session of the NATO Parliamentary Assembly. If even Hamas is willing to release hostages, then Putin can also be made to restore peace, Volodymyr Zelenskyy is confident. Russia continues to shell Ukrainian cities and destroy the country's critical infrastructure. The goal of this terror is to break the resistance of Ukrainians. The head of state called on partners to increase their support for Ukraine. It is necessary to make a decision on the delivery of air defense systems and missiles as soon as possible, he emphasized.
With President Trump, we discussed the details of air defense, Patriot systems, Tomahawk missiles, and the energy equipment we need. We also discussed the program. It allows for the purchase of American weapons, including missiles for Patriot systems, and helps convince the U.S. administration that America's allies in Europe and other NATO partners are determined. I thank the countries that have already joined this program. These are the Netherlands, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Germany, Canada, the Baltic countries, Belgium, Luxembourg, Iceland, as well as Slovenia.
If Putin does not resolve the war with Ukraine, he will seriously regret it, said the head of the White House. According to Donald Trump, the actions of the Kremlin significantly complicate reaching a peace agreement. Even conflicts that lasted for decades were easier to resolve, the U.S. president admits. However,
the United States government, commonly referred to as Washington, has consistently demonstrated through its various actions and official pronouncements that it harbors no intention of discontinuing or ceasing its ongoing endeavors and persistent efforts. These sustained initiatives are firmly committed to their objectives and are expected to continue without interruption for the foreseeable future.
The U.S. administration is firmly committed to resolving Russia's war against Ukraine, said U.S. Representative to NATO Matthew Whitaker. He claims that if Putin still does not take steps to end this war, the U.S. president will increase pressure on Moscow. The measures will include not only sanctions, but also military aid to Kyiv, Whitaker noted.
A peace agreement requires effort. The problem is that we always expect immediate results. As if Donald Trump just needs to make a phone call and will strike a deal right away. Sometimes that does happen, but in this case, obviously, Putin has decided to be stubborn. So we'll have to keep increasing the pressure. That's exactly what's happening right now. And we still have plenty of aces up our sleeve.
A series of meetings and negotiations between Washington and Kiev will take place in the near future, according to Ukrainian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Hiri Takiai. The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry has officially invited U.S. Secretary of State Mark Rubio to the country. And soon, a high-level Ukrainian delegation will be heading to the United States.
I can confirm what the President of Ukraine has stated. Next week, there will be a visit by Prime Minister Yulius Vyrodenko, head of the Presidential Office Andriy Yermak, and the President's Commissioner for Sanctions Policy, Vladislav Volodymyr. The main topics are, of course, air defense, energy, and sanctions measures. The visit is very important. The meetings will be at the highest level. You will see quite an impressive lineup of American officials. We expect the visit to be very substantive. These are exactly the teams working on important decisions, some of which are already underway. These are decisions regarding security, defense, and sanctions.
The Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has called on the European Union to adopt the 19th sanctions package against Russia as soon as possible. And according to the Ukrainian Minister of Foreign Affairs, it should include strong measures against Russia's energy sector, banking sector, and shadow fleet. Andriy Mitrenko for Freedom TV Channel.
Subscribe to UATV English and stay updated on the most important events, top news from Ukraine and all over the world, in-depth analysis, exclusive reports and interviews, all on hand in our channel. Join our community of viewers and stay tuned.